this one. Okay, so we're doing prep test 87, game 2. It's a pretty basic ordering game, so depending on how long this takes us, we can either set up another game or end early. I don't think it'll take us too long because it's got not a lot of rules and it's a pretty basic ordering game, so we're not doing hybrid or anything like that. So, okay, so we have, let me get my pen, that would be nice. We have a television station must determine the order in which 5 commercials, each advertising a single product, fast food, granola, pizza, sportswear, or trucks. Oh, I was about to say trunks. No, it's trucks. Or trucks are to be aired during the 5 slots available in a commercial break. So basically, we have to decide which commercial is airing which product. So we have fast food, granola, pizza, sportswear, and trucks. That is a weird mixture.
Yeah. Pizza.
And we have 5 spots. So like I said, pretty basic ordering game. We're not doing any grouping. We're not picking 5 from 8 products or anything. It's just a basic ordering game. So this is pretty much the setup. We just have 5 spots. We're going to order those groups or those products into the 5 spots. Any questions on the setup?
Nope.
Pretty basic. Okay. So the first rule says the pizza commercial must be aired earlier than the granola commercial. What would you do for this rule?
I would do P and then an arrow, maybe, and then G.
Yeah. We have to have P before G. Perfect. Every time we do a rule, we're going to think about the different possibilities and if we can break that rule up into worlds so we can fully eliminate it. Looking at that first rule, would you make worlds off of this one?
You could, but I feel like, wouldn't it be too many?
Yeah, you're right. You totally could start with this one, but my gosh, it's going to give you a lot. Because even if we put P in 1, that means G has spots 2 through 5. If P is in 2, G can go through 3 through 5. And so that's a lot of different spots because we can just go all the way down to 4, the last spot that P can go in, and place G there. But the magic rule that I've been telling everyone, if it's creating anything more than 4 worlds, we're going to hang on to it, see if there's something more restricted. Maybe something has to go before P or something has to go after G. That makes it more restrictive of where our variables can go. So the next one says the sportswear commercial must be aired earlier than the truck commercial.
So in that case, it would be earlier. Same thing, except it would be S, arrow, T.
Yeah. And if you look at the 2 rules, they're the exact same. We've just switched the product. So that means that we can write the rule the exact same way and just switch our variables. It's pretty nice. Would you make worlds off of this one?
No, because it would also be too many.
Yeah, same thing. If S can go before T, that means S can go in 1. T has 4 spots it can go in. S can go in 2. T has 3 spots it can go in. So it's creating a lot of different worlds. So I wouldn't start with that one. I would agree. All right. Last and final rule says fast food and sportswear commercial must be aired consecutively. What would you do with this one?
So with this, I would do the letter F and then S and put it like in a box, just to know that they kind of have to go together.
Anything else? You're missing one key thing.
I'm not sure.
Do we care about the order of them? Does it matter if F goes before S or if S goes before F?
Oh no. So then you can do SF and then in a box.
Yeah, so we can have them go, they can basically flip-flop. So we can basically just do this or do our arrows. But yeah, it doesn't tell me that there has to be a specific order for F and S. If there was, it would have said something like F has to go immediately before S, or S has to go immediately before F. But when it just says that they have to be consecutive, it just doesn't care about the order so long as they're touching each other.
Perfect.
Okay. Before I ask you if you would make worlds off of this one, can you combine any of our rules to make a bigger rule?
I was thinking that could we do rule 2 and rule 3? So do FS and then arrow T.
Yeah. When you go to look for if you can combine rules together, we're going to look for variables that are in common, the duplicate variables. So in that case, between 2 and 3, we have S. And so, yeah, we can totally combine them together. So that means that we can forget about rule 3 and 2 and just focus on this big, massive, well, it's not a huge rule, but this bigger rule. And that'll help us kind of place these variables because it's going to restrict it even more than they were individually.
Okay.
So how would you make, or yeah, how would you make worlds off of this one?
Could we do F in number 1 and then S in number 2? And then maybe T in number 3?
Yes, so I see where you're going and it's a dark hole. Well, it's not, it's a long hole. So what you're doing is going, okay, F and S can go here, then I could have T, and F and S can go here. And I don't know if you're even thinking about it even further. Okay, I'm going to create a world where S and F go here and T goes here. It can be long, or yeah, it can be overly long to think about it in that way. So the way that I want you to think about it is picking parts of the rule. So in our giant rule, the most restrictive part of that rule is F and S have to be together. They can't be torn apart. Whereas T can be kind of pulled along with F and S as far apart as it needs to be. So if we determine where F and S can go in our world, where they could kind of flip-flop, it can help us figure out where T goes, and then P and G are just going to fall into place. So focus on F and S. Where could F and S, that block, go?
In 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm. Where else?
In 2 and 3.
Where else?
And then 3 and 4.
Anywhere else?
Could we do 4 and 5?
Can we do 4 and 5?
Actually, no, because then T wouldn't be able to go in front of it.
Yeah, so there's no spot for T to come after, which means that we can't have F and S at the end. And I'm totally okay with you writing out that world if that's what it takes for you to see it. But even if you just look at the block and go, okay, I have to have at least one after it, not really worrying about where that T is specifically going to go, but reminding yourself that at least one spot has to be reserved for it means that you don't necessarily have to make that world. And I'm going to make this a little bit easier to read. Okay. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so we got F and S placed. relatively. We know where they can potentially go. Finish out that rule so we can completely eliminate it. Where could T go in world 1?
In 3, 4, or 5.
Yeah, and so what I like to do, rather than putting T in 3, 4, and 5 and making 3 more separate worlds, essentially in world number 1, T becomes a floater because those are the only 3 spots that are open, and wherever or in any spot, if I put T in any one of those spots, it doesn't eliminate or it doesn't violate the game. So essentially, T can go anywhere. It's kind of like I'm making a new board, if that makes sense. Like if I blocked off F and S, T's a floater. So rather than making the 3 worlds, I'm just going to put it off to the side that T can pretty much go anywhere. I don't really care where it goes. Sound good? Okay. What about world number 2? Where could T go?
T could go in 4 or 5.
Yeah, and so rather than, there's 2 ways you could go about placing T. You can do T and our little arrow that we usually do to say that it's shifting. I think that's a lot in that world because we're also having to remember that F and S are shifting between each other. And usually I try to make it as simple as possible. So I'm going to create 2 worlds. So rather than having to remember 2 of my variables are shifting, I really only have to deal with 1 of them. So one of them can go in 4, one of them can go in 5. All right, last world for this rule. What about 3? Where does T go?
In the 5th block.
Yep, only spot it can go in that world. And now we have completely eliminated that rule, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. And then let me know when you're ready.
Okay.
All right, this is the fun part. P and G just kind of trickle in and fall into place, which is really great. So, in the first world, I'm going to hold off on the first world because I want to go more in depth on it, but we can easily fill out 2 and 4 because P and G are the only variables left. So in the second world, where does P and G go?
It can either go in 1 or 5.
You mean like respectively, like P in 1,
Yeah.
2, and 5?
Like, couldn't we do, oh, okay, yeah, PG. I was gonna say P/G and then P/G, but I forgot P has to go before G. So yeah, just.
So they're actually, yeah, they're forced to go in those spots.
Yeah.
What about world number 3?
You would do P in the first line, number 1, and then G would be number 2.
Yep. And my S makes it look like this is a floater. It's not. Okay. And the fourth world, where do they have to go?
P would be number 1 and G would be number 4.
Yep. Okay. Now we're going to tackle world number 1. So we have T can go in any one of 3 spots, and we have to put P before G. My recommendation for this is to figure out where one of our variables can go from this rule. I don't care if you pick on G or P, but if we figure out where P goes and then where G then has to go, it helps T kind of trickle in. So kind of like what we just did with P and G and our other ones, T is just going to fall into place because it doesn't really have a restricted spot that it has to go in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. So in the first world, where could P or G go? I don't care which one you pick.
P could either go in 3 or 4.
Yep. Ooh. We have P in 3, P in 4. And are you ready? Let me know when you're ready.
Okay.
Okay. In the first world, what happens to G and T?
So then technically then couldn't G go in 4 or 5?
Yeah, because it's still after P, right?
Yeah.
And what about T? Where could T go? Okay, yeah.
T could go in 4 or 5.
Yeah, so they basically go back and forth between each other again. We can either break this into another world, or we can do our flip-flop signal, or do our thingy like that.
Yeah, I think I like that version.
I'm gonna make that our F's and S's like that too. That's my preferred way of doing it too. Because then I'm reminded that they could go in those spots. Okay. And last world, world number 5. Tell me where my variables have to go.
So then G has to go in number 5. And then T would go in number 3.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That was the last rule that we had to go over. We placed pretty much all of our variables, and we've gone through all of our worlds. These are the only worlds that exist within this game.
Okay.
Do you have any questions on the setup?
No, I like this one.
It's a relatively simple game. Oh, I forgot I don't have that. Move you over here. Okay, we're gonna go into the questions then. Haha, first one is not a list question. That's weird. Okay. First question says, how many of the commercials are there, any one of which could be aired last?
Ooh, okay. Basically just 2.
Yeah, which 2?
G and T.
I love questions like that. It's so easy to look at your diagrams and go, 1, 2. That's it. Any questions about that one?
Nope. How did you get it to tell you that was the right answer?
So, I won't show the answer on this one. But once you pick an answer choice, you can click show answer. I am in
Okay.
not test mode. So there's like the self-paced mode and test mode.
Okay.
I think test mode doesn't allow you to do that. I'm not entirely sure. But I'm in like the study mode where you can like have ample time to do it. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you complete the section, if you click complete the section and you review it, it'll show all the answers too.
Okay.
All right. Let's go into number 7. Says, if the truck commercial is aired earlier than the granola commercial, which one of the following cannot be true?
So basically it's 1, 2, and 5. Not be true.
Are you stuck between some?
Let me not focus on this one, focus on these two. So, which cannot be true. Okay, I think it's B, but let's see. Okay, no, I don't know why now these kind of confuse me, because cannot be true means it doesn't happen in all, or like in the ones it's talking about.
So cannot be true, 100% must be false. It cannot happen. So the way that I think about cannot be true or must be false, if we're looking for something that 100% cannot happen, that means that our wrong answer choices could happen. Because we can't have two answer choices that cannot happen. So the 4 wrong answer choices can happen in the worlds that we're looking at. Try looking at it that way.
Oh, okay, so yeah, it's B.
Yeah. Because it cannot happen that we have G in the 4th if T is before G. Let me get my pen. Whoop. Means G, T. Yeah. None of these, well, I'm circling the wrong one. None of those have G as the 4th one. So on those cannot be trues, or like those negative answer choices where you're looking for something that can't happen, flip it around and look for the positive, because usually that's easier for our brains to recognize. See what can happen and eliminate those. That'll help you kind of narrow in, I think, easier on your correct answer choice. Because I do agree, those are really confusing, and these kinds of questions were some of like the last kind of questions that I had to tackle. Like, they're generally more difficult than the other questions because you're flipping your mind. Yeah. Any questions on that one?
Nope.
Okay. Our next one, if the pizza commercial is aired immediately before the truck commercial, then which one of the following could be true?
I'm gonna go with E.
Yeah. So this one is, you can almost predict this one. This is the one trick that I have noticed with could be true questions. So when you're within a world, and so like in this case, if P is immediately before T, that only happens in one. We can have T there and we can have G there. If it's asking you for what could be true, and you have something like our F and S that's flip-flopping, 98% of the time it's going to be an answer choice with F or S in it, because that's what could be true, is F and S can flip-flop. They can move around. Could be true that F is in 1 or 2. So you can almost predict these by just seeing what else or what is not set in stone. So kind of like our must be truths, you can predict those because they're set in stone. You can see what's happening in all of the worlds. You can kind of flip that for could be truths and see, okay, what's not set in stone? Most likely the answer choice is going to refer to that one.
Ooh, okay.
Any questions?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Next one. How many of the commercials are there, any of which could be aired second?
Three. Let's see.
Easy. Any questions on that one?
Nope.
That was pretty much the same question as our first one where we had to figure out which ones were last.
And it's so much easier when we have the table and you can just like look right through everything.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think this is the last one.
Mhm.
If the granola and the truck commercial are not aired consecutively, then which one of the following could be true?
Okay, this one.
So first off, do you know which worlds you're in?
I'm looking at the third one and the fifth one.
Perfect, because they're not touching.
Yeah.
And we have to see what could be true. So could be true just means that it has to happen one time within our worlds.
Okay, so then it's D.
Yeah. And again, you could have also used that little shortcut that I had talked about earlier. If we know G and T are set in stone, P set in stone within those two worlds, F and S can still flip-flop between one another. And since it's a could be true, it's probably going to be talking about those two. And indeed it does.
Okay, yeah, could be true.
Any questions on that one?
Nope.
All right. That was the last question within that game. We went through that pretty quickly.
Well, that was pretty good. Okay, I'm happy. Because I feel like I kind of struggle with logic games a little bit still.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I'll get as far as, okay, the rules, I'll write it out, but then I don't do enough worlds, or sometimes like one little thing will trip me up. And you know, once one thing's wrong, the whole thing is,
Domino effect.
yeah. So it's like, darn.
Yeah, so it's good that you're at least recognizing that you're tripping up on maybe missing some worlds or whatever that may be. But that's good because then it's good practice to go back and go, okay, what did I miss? Did I misread a rule? Did I combine rules together? What did I miss? And that way, when you see that, you go, all right, I'm never going to do that again. That was a stupid mistake. And from then on, you're going to always remember, I have to remember that consecutively doesn't mean necessarily in that order. It just means that they touch. So the mistakes help us remember what to do in the future, which is nice. So the other good thing is this game in particular, oh my gosh, there's so many of them that are like this. So there are plenty to practice from.
Good. When you were practicing logic games, were you doing kind of like this, or were you on LSAT Demon?
I was on Demon. So the way that I practiced logic games was I would go in and drill a logic game, and I would do as far as I could, answer as many questions as I could. And if it was a game that really stumped me, or I missed like 5 out of the 6 questions that I had, I would watch one of their videos and redo the game with them. So like I was in class basically. And once I got unstuck, or once I saw where they were going, like, oh, okay, then I'm going to combine this, and then I can figure out where my F and S go, I'd pause the video, continue to do as much as I could, and then if I got stuck again, I would rewatch, or I would continue to rewatch and see if they did anything different. And that's basically how I did it. Even if I got games correct, like 100% correct, or it took me 10 minutes or 8 minutes to do, I would still look at the videos and see if there's any indication that there was another way to do it, because there's no correct way to do games. You can do games any way that you want, and some of the worlds can be built differently or built off of different rules. So even if I got it correct, I would go and watch at least one video or a couple of seconds of a video and see if they did it any other a different approach. So maybe that different approach was easier for my mind to grasp, or it was quicker, or it led to more inferences or something like that. So those videos, I feel like games is a section that you kind of have to watch someone do it in order to learn it. And those videos are really helpful because of that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to get to that. I'm not in that section yet right now, but I do, sometimes I'll skip to it and I'll do a couple, so I'm gonna definitely watch more videos.
Yeah, and 7 Sage, I think they teach worlds, but they don't rely on them as heavily as Demon does. Demon is full-blown like worlds, this is the way to go. 7 Sage kind of picks and chooses when to use worlds, so just be aware of that if there's one game that you're not grasping or it's really hard for you to get, I would bounce between both of them, because they may have different setups for both of them, and maybe one works better for you.
Okay. Makes sense.
Any other questions?
Nope, that was it.
All right. We have about 20 more minutes left. We can either end class early, or we could probably set up another game. What would you like to do?
Up to you. Do you have another one that's kind of on this level, or would it be a little harder?
Let me see. I don't even know what level this one is. Let me. Trying to think off the top of my head if any of them are coming to me. Let's look at this one. Hmm. Let's try this one. Okay, so this is 74 game 1. It looks like a simple ordering game, so let's give it a shot. It's either going to go down a rabbit hole and we have a lot of different possibilities and flexibility, or it'll be like our other one where we only have like 4 worlds.
So PT74. What section is it?
1. Section 1, game 1.
Ooh, okay. Okay, so let's see.
So we have a concert is given by a 6-member band. We have guitar, keyboard, percussionist, saxophonist, trumpeter, violinist. During the concert, each member performs exactly 1 solo. So we have no repeat variables. We're not duplicating anything. We're not having empty spots. We have the exact number of variables as spots, which is nice because that means that once we've placed a variable, that's it. Okay. First rule says the guitarist does not perform the 4th solo. What would you do with this one?
So I would do G1 like at the bottom and then maybe crossed out or something. I'm trying to think how I write out not.
Easiest way I would recommend is, I can't put G there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So rather than writing it out to the side or anything, I can literally just put it in my diagram that G just can't perform on 4.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay, let's go into our second rule, which says the percussionist performs a solo at some time before the keyboard player does. What would you do with this one?
So I would do P and then arrow K.
Yeah, so it's kind of like our other rule. Actually, it's the exact same thing as our other rules within the other game. It's just worded differently, but it means the same thing. Why is like my handwriting not working? Any questions on that one?
Nope.
Pretty relatively easy. Would you make worlds off of this one?
No, because it would be too many.
Yeah, it creates a lot of different worlds. P could go in 5 spots. K could go in 5 spots. It's a lot of worlds. So I'm going to wait for something more restrictive. So the third rule says the keyboard player performs a solo at some time after the violinist does and sometime before the guitarist does. So this is what I call like a 2-part rule. It's giving us like 2 different rules within one rule. My recommendation is to pause at that and focus on that first part and then focus on the next part. So in this case, focus on the first part. The keyboard player performs a solo at some time after the violinist does. What would that look like?
So it would be V and then K.
Yeah. Now look at the second part. K performs at some time before the guitarist does. What does that look like?
So oh, and then G next to the K.
Yeah. So if you break it up into different parts, it's a little bit easier to digest and fully understand what they're telling you. So that's what I recommend when you have like two different rules in a rule. Now, before we go any further, can we combine these two rules?
I don't think so. I don't see it. Like the K.
So we have a duplicate, or we have a common variable in between there. K is in both of them. So we can combine it. It's just going to look a little weird because it's not as easy as what we did before where they just kind of flow. So what I do is I go, okay, K is my main variable. I'm going to build off of K. So to the right, after K, we have G. To the left, we have P and V. P and V both have to go before K, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it matter what order P and V go in with themselves? Does V have to go before P and vice versa?
No.
No. So what I do to represent that is I put them on top of each other. One is not better than the other, basically. They're equal. So P and V have to go before K, but we don't care about what order they go in.
Oh, okay. That's smart. Makes sense.
I'm going to leave those up here just in case, but this is going to be what we're going to build off of, essentially. So our last rule says the saxophonist performs a solo at some time after either the percussionist does or the trumpeter does, but not both.
So we could do S or P, then arrow S, since it's after. And then
What about my T?
and then T arrow S.
Yes. But this last part, but not both, means that we can combine these two in a way to where we can represent this, but also represent that one of them has to come after us. Because if they can't both come before us, that means that someone's going to have to come after it, right?
Yes.
So what we can do is we can flip this around and do this. P is before S. That would mean that T has to come after because T can't go before S according to that rule. And if we flipped it, if we had T before us, that means P has to come after us because they can't both come before us.
Okay.
We can also write it something like that.
Okay.
Okay. Now, we can combine these two rules because we have a P as a common variable in between them. It gets a little dicey when we do that. It can be kind of confusing on the mind. So we're going to leave them separate for right now and just kind of work through what we have, which is totally fine. We can mush them together as we build our world. If we start with this rule, P and T and S are just going to fall into place afterwards. Because once we have P somewhere, we can look and see what what spots are left, and then we can determine where S and T are going to go. So I'm going to say this one's rule 1, this one's rule 2. So in rule 1, if we're going to start with rule 1, what variable would you place down first?
So I would do K as number 2.
Can K go in 2? How many variables have to come before K?
Oh, just kidding. 2 variables, right? I thought it was an or thing. In that case, it would have to be 3.
Mm-hmm. And what's the latest it could go? How many have to come after K?
Isn't it just 1? G?
Yeah. There's only one variable that comes after it, so that means that the latest it could go, if we have to have one spot reserved for it after, would be what?
5.
Yeah. Which means we can have anything in between 3 and 5, which means our other spot available for K is what?
4.
Yep. Okay. What do you, we've got K figured out. Let's pick on G. Where could G go in world number 1?
So it can either go in 5 or 6.
Yeah, so let's make another world just for the hell of it, for the practice. So I'm gonna have one where it's in 5, one where it's in 6. Okay, what about my second world? Where does G have to go?
In 6.
Yeah. And again, in the third world, where does G have to go?
It could either go in 5 or 6.
Yes, I misspoke. G can go in either one of those. Awesome. Okay. Now, let's go into, okay. Let's go into P and V. Let's kind of figure out relatively where they could go. Because they don't really, it doesn't really matter at this point who comes before which one. We're just going to figure out kind of where that block could go. So in the first world, where could P and V go?
1 or 2.
Yeah. And what about my second world?
It can go between 1 through 4.
Yeah. And I like how you said that, because do P and V have to touch?
No.
No. So we could have like P here and V here, or vice versa, or something like that. So kind of like how we talked about in our other game, because the empty spots are consecutive, like we're not having an interruption with G or K, P and V basically become floaters. No matter where we put them within that world, they're not going to violate that rule, at least, P and V before K.
Okay.
What about my third world? Where can P and V go?
1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, so if we're looking at 2 variables, how am I phrasing this? What spots could they go in? Does that make sense?
Kind of.
So, if P and V can go in 1, 2, and 3, what could that mixture look like? What spots could they fill in a world?
So they could do P in 1, or PV in 1. And then PV in 2.
What else could they do?
PV in 3. And I guess that would be it. Just 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, so what I was kind of getting at is we can have PV in 1 and 2. P and V could take up 2 and 3.
Oh,
And
okay.
P and V could take up 1 and 3. It was kind of hard to like ask you it without giving it away. What spots could they fill essentially? You ready?
Yeah, so, okay, I think I see it now. 3 then is since we didn't, okay, so for rule, or the third one, it then gets copied down to the 6th world.
Yeah, so we did this world and this world. These 3 spots is where P and V can basically go in when K and G are in 4 and 5.
Okay. Okay. I'm ready.
Okay. Next world is number 4. Where could P and V go?
We could do in 1, 2, and then that's it.
Yeah, there's
2.
only those 2 spots. And last world with P and V, world number 5, where could they go?
In 1, 2, or 3. Or like 1, 2, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Yeah. I'm gonna start building my worlds over here because I don't have enough room. And 9. And we have K, G. Okay, so you said P and V can go in 1. P and V can go in 2 and 3. And P and V can go in 1 and 3. All right. Oh, okay, yeah, we did this. Okay, we're gonna do the easy stuff now. Our P, T, and S rule. Looking at world number 1, where do the rest of the variables have to go?
So S would have to go in number 4.
Yep.
And then T would go in number 6.
Yeah, because either way, if we pick P in 1 or 2, it's still going to follow the rule that it's PST basically. So it's still following that structure. I'm going to skip 2 for right now because everything else we can kind of trickle in S and T, and then we'll go back to 2. So in world number 3, what do I have? Where could S and T go?
So you would do S in 3 and then T in 6.
Perfect.
And
What about 4?
We'll do S in 4 and T in 5.
Yep.
And then 5 would be S in 3 and T in 5.
I love when things just trickle in like this. Okay, what about 6?
That one. I'm not sure. Where what could S go in 1?
Could it? Could it be sandwiched between P and T in this world?
I think.
The reason why you're struggling is because it can't. So if it's not fitting, it's probably because it can't fit. So if I put S in 1, I can't sandwich it with T. T would have to go in 6. And that doesn't have S between P and T. Vice versa, if I put S on 6, I can't have T and P sandwiching it. So that world just doesn't exist. It just doesn't happen.
Okay. Cross it out.
What about 7?
You could do S in 2 and then T in 6.
Okay. If I have S in 2, what is forced to happen with my P and V?
P has to be number 1.
Yeah.
It has to be number 3.
So watch where you're putting that S, because sometimes where you're putting it or where you're putting your variable is going to force some of those flip-flops to actually become concrete. What about my 8th world? It's kind of
It
hidden.
wouldn't work.
Yes, because I can't sandwich my S.
And for the 9th one, same thing. It would be S in 2 and T in 6. So that means P would have to be number 1 and V would have to be number 3.
Yay! Okay, now we got to work on that second world. And even though it kind of looks a little daunting, it can be restrictive, which is nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out, how do I want to lead this? We're missing P, V, S, and T, right?
Yes.
Between those variables, which one do you think is the most restrictive, where there's only a few spots it could go in?
S.
Yes, because where can S only go?
It can either go in 2 or in 3.
Yeah. Okay. Now, looking at world 2, we have P, V, and T that's left over. And we have to have P and T somehow sandwiching S. So thinking about what has to be surrounding S, what has to be, or what could be in spot number 1?
P.
Could be P, what else could it be?
It could be V or T.
Can it be V?
Actually, no, just P or T.
Yeah, because if I put V there, my P and T, they can't sandwich my S. So that means that P or T is going to have to go there. And again, with our P and V rule, even though I erased it because we fully incorporate it, we don't care which order P and V happen in. So I could put V in 4 and P in 1. I could put P in 3 and V in 4 if I wanted to. So what that means is what could go in 3 and 4? Or what how do I want to word this? What variable has to be sandwiched? Not sandwiched. What variable has to go in 3 or 4?
It would have to be T or V.
It's one of those that has to go in there. Does it necessarily have to be true that T is in 3 or 4 in that second world?
Yes, wouldn't it have to? Well, no, I guess it doesn't.
Yeah, so because I could have T over here in 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what has to go in 3 or 4 is my V variable. It has to go in one of those two because V can't be in 1. And since I only have 2 spots left, V has to take up one of those spots. So if V can go in 3 or 4, what variable is it flipping with? Or what groups of variables?
With T,
Or,
P.
yeah. So basically what I'm doing essentially in this world is I'm taking my rule, plopping it in there, and then smushing the V in between P and T.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Last world, number 10. If I have S in 4, and I know that S has to be sandwiched between P and T, what has to go in my 4th spot?
T or P.
Yeah, it has to be switched or sandwiched between one of those two, and the only spot to put that in is 4 at that on that side. So what does that mean has to go in my 1 or 2 spot?
P, T, or V.
Yeah, same thing kind of up in 2. We just kind of flipped them around. V is going to have to go into 1 or 2 because there's no other spot to put it. But it can flip with my other sandwich, my other half of my sandwich, P or T. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. That's the game. That's all we have. Any questions about it?
Nope. I'm going to try the questions later and see if I can figure it out with this.
Yeah, yeah. I think this one was a little bit harder than the one that we had done, but we use the same steps to get to it. We just have to think about it a little bit different. We got to think about it outside of the box, kind of. So, yeah. But this one I think was a little bit more harder, but still doable.
Not bad. Thank you. And I'm going to let you go because I know you have a ton of other people and you're probably like dying.
Yeah.
Sorry, this went a little longer.
That's fine. I mean, I like teaching it, so. All right. Well, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Let me know if you have questions on the questions themselves. PT74 game 1.
Okay. Yep. I'm about to work on it. And then if I have any questions, I will let you know.
Okay. Well, I will see you later then.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.